Shattered Space is the first big expansion that Starfield has seen since its divisive launch a year ago. The horror-laden DLC releases on September 30th, but will it compel players to free up 125 gigabytes of space to install Starfield once more? While Shattered Space does feature an expansive new environment with a fresh story and quests, it's largely set off to the side from the base game. In other words, don't expect any fundamental changes to Starfield with Shattered Space. Still, this expansion's direction into fantastical horror and the focus on handcrafted environments could give the player base confidence in Starfield's future. Will Shattered Space change Starfield's fortunes for the better? Well, let's explore how this new DLC could mark the beginnings of a revival for Bethesda's ambitious spacefaring RPG. Now, let's get one thing out of the way first. Shattered Space is not a 2.0 overhaul of the base game. It's almost as if the devs purposefully sequestered the new location of the DLC as far away from the settled systems as possible, in order to distance themselves from many of the core game's faults. The majority of Shattered Space's new content is exclusive to the cult's planet, but there are some things that get transferred to the settled systems, potentially adding to Starfield's core experience in small ways. As expected, the new DLC includes new armor and weapons, which can be used across the base game. There's new grenade types as well, and some of them are crafted using organic parts, as Bethesda's Twitter post warns us, using the modifier gross to describe them. Will these grenades function similarly to Death Stranding's urine grenades? Well, only time will tell. More substantial than new armor and equipment are the ship customization options and traversal mechanics added with Shattered Space. While we don't have specifics regarding these additions, lead creative producer Tim Lamb has confirmed in a Gamescom interview that new ship customization will help players further personalize their vessel in ways that actually affect playstyle. Even more vague is his teasing of new tools and gadgets that aid exploration and your interaction with the world. Now, we can only guess what these new ship customization options are and exploration tools are, but at least there's something that players can bring with them outside the secluded zone that the DLC takes place in. Shattered Space certainly won't fix the intrinsic problems baked into Starfield's core. The base game's plot, writing, empty zones, and long load times will still exist after Shattered Space, but one thing the DLC does bring to the table is a brand new narrative adventure crafted with player feedback in mind, and all within its own sector away from the settled systems.
Look at you.
If you don't mind, I'm gonna start doing some scans. Like, right now.
We were right about the anomaly, weren't we? Tip our ears on the tail.
Many players criticize the base game's plot as being undefined and unfocused. I mean, sure, artifact collecting and parallel universes are cool and all, but one can't help yearn for an engaging conflict or goal to work towards. This is something the devs of Shattered Space seek to rectify. As mentioned in dev interviews, Bethesda seeks to craft a more rich experience, something that feels personal and impactful, as Tim Lamb puts it. It's already clear how exactly this will be accomplished. Shattered Space is singularly focused on a mysterious cult at large. This focus contrasts Starfield's broader themes of space exploration and discovery. The central plot thrusting the narrative of Shattered Space forward is particularly rife with political conflict and grand intrigue. The DLC has you diving into the heart of the cult's society. Even the way you get to the planet is vastly more interesting and exciting than anything in the base game. You access the DLC by answering a distress signal on a derelict spaceship, which then takes you through the wormhole to the secluded system. If the derelict spaceship gave you Dead Space vibes, you're not far off here. It's immediately clear from the trailers just how horror-driven Shattered Space will be. Shattered Space is much less optimistic, ejecting the joy of exploration theme so prominent in the base game, delving more into horror and secluded atmospheres. The emphasis on vortexes and wormholes shares some similarities with physics-bending anomalies within the Stalker games. Gravitational distortions are creating wormhole vortexes around the planet of the cult, dumping out a variety of extra-dimensional monsters as a result. Many of the DLC's new enemy types are results of these gravitational distortions. Vortex terrors leap out of vortexes at you from behind like a jump scare encounter found in traditional horror games. Close encounters and ambushes will be commonplace in Shattered Space, requiring a host of new melee equipment to deal with. As such, a majority of the DLC's new weaponry is focused on more intimate skirmishes, so expect more melee tools to add to your arsenal. Besides some horror elements being introduced to Starfield's gameplay, Shattered Space also introduces zero-gravity combat scenarios. The creative producer says that these wholly original zero-G sequences require more strategy from the player and comprise a totally new angle to the game's combat. Players have asked for more melee weapons and a greater emphasis on close encounters, so this shift in Shattered Space's gameplay is definitely a positive one. Another thing players have asked for is less load screens and more densely populated planets, issues that Shattered Space is seeking to directly improve. One way Shattered Space addresses these criticisms is with its self-contained planetary system within the cult's planet. The creative producer confirms that the total space of the new playable areas span a little sector, which is smaller than a galaxy but more expanded than a single planet. You won't be planet hopping across systems for quests, as the core experiences takes place in a single confined zone within the capital city of Dazra. This zoomed-in focus on just one planet means less fast travel across different locations and less load times as a result. You'll be exploring intricately dense zones in a seamless manner, hopefully unbroken by loading screens. The new capital city, Dazra, and its surrounding surface map cell is also said to be fully handcrafted. While the rest of the planet will no doubt be procedurally generated, it's good that the area where the campaign happens, the entire area surrounding the city, is bespoke. Lastly, the cult faction is getting substantial significance in Shattered Space. The cults aren't the only ones getting additional screen time though. The Spacers and Crimson Fleet factions are all positioning themselves within the cult after seizing the opportunity granted by the open wormhole. There will be a lot of potential and political maneuvering as these competing factions fight to fill a political void within the cult. This leads into how the player will make decisions in the DLC. We will presumably have to choose which faction to join during this conflict, and perhaps even have a chance to be in charge of the capital city of Dazra. It's doubtful Shattered Space will fix the intrinsic problems baked into Starfield, but it will offer an alternative location set apart from the rest of the settled systems. The devs are listening to player feedback and incorporating these revised aspects into the new DLC content. Shattered Space features a more focused and engaging experience draped in a fantastical horror theme. Melee combat is given more emphasis, with some survival horror elements thrown in for extra spice. Perhaps, best of all, the DLC's campaign takes place within a single enclosed location, which means less planet hopping and reduced load times. There's a pronounced emphasis on handcrafted content across the board here, whether it be the city and its surface map cell or the zero-gravity combat encounters. Still, Shattered Space isn't a 2.0 overhaul of the entire game. It's more of an isolated expansion akin to what Shivering Isles was to Oblivion. Todd Howard recently revealed that there's plans to put out a DLC once a year. Now, if this is true, maybe we'll slowly get to the point that CD Projekt Red reached with Cyberpunk 2077 and its 2.0 overhaul. A Starfield comeback really depends on Bethesda's willingness to keep improving the game, and whether players have the patience and interest to keep playing. We'll see on September 30th whether or not Shattered Space gives players hope for a No Man's Sky type of overhaul for Starfield's future. So, what are your thoughts on this? Go ahead and share them in the comments below. And if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel and enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon to get new video updates. We upload every day and would really appreciate your support. Thanks for watching.